Sunlight travels millions of miles across space, but only penetrates the upper layer of the sea. To swim straight down is to reach further than the stars. At 12 years old, there was no greater thrill than flirting with the abyss. Welcome to Candor Lake. The blistered red sign disappeared as Mom spun the steering wheel and set us down the rocky path. Trees squeezed in around both sides of the road. Overhead, their interlocking canopies blotted out the sun, until the car cleared the entrance and rumbled across the parking lot. Anticipation wriggled around in my guts. I stretched the strap of my red goggles and secured them over my eyes. Cole! I'd unbuckled my seatbelt and flung open the door before Mom had a chance to park. I raced across the cracked asphalt and picked my way through the tall grass, eyes peeled for geese droppings. Soon, the hill sloped down and gave way to the shore of Candor Lake. Mom trudged through the grass with her work bag. Shit, she said, staring down at the bottom of her sandal. Crap. You're supposed to wait for the car to stop. Sorry. The blue-green water rippled and sparkled. I'm sorry, Mom. She collapsed down onto the seat of a picnic table, its wooden skin tattooed with slurs and signatures. Go ahead, Cole, Mom sighed, waving me away. She reached into her work bag and set her laptop on the table. Have some fun. The surface of the lake was flush with summer, with lily pads and clumps of moss and stray leaves from the surrounding forest. Winding trees stooped around the far edge, reaching for the water with scraggly branches. A rope swing hung from a grand oak, twisting like a snake in the wind. With each step, the greyly sand shifted beneath my weight, trickling down the slope, until the line where the waters touched met ground, and all was turned to mush. Brown, mucky sand stuck to the soles of my feet as I waded into the icy water. Slowly, allowing each inch of my body to acclimate to the chill, some inches were worse than others. The silhouettes danced beneath. I waited for the daring fish to approach my legs, then stomped. The shadows raced away through the cloud of dust. The too tight goggles bore into my skin, juicing my brain like a lemon. I walked until my toes could just barely reach, until the water lapped at my chin like my dog. It wasn't long before Mom began to snore. I watched her, head slumped down against a keyboard. I watched the rope swing dance. I watched the empty lifeguard chairs, and then I turned away from the shore and swam. Scything my arms through the water and splashing with my feet, I swam until the far edge of the forest didn't seem that far. Its tree line towering from above. I swam until Mom's snoring became a distant echo, and quiet settled in the air. I swam until I reached the center of the lake, totally engulfed by its shimmering body. I lined myself upright and treaded in the water, bobbing up and down. Sunlight poured down from the sky, and reflecting in the water as a glimmering X, marking my treasure. I dug my fingers under the strap and untangled my hair from the goggles. Its bright plastic red and my fair tan skin were the only flashes of colour in that vast cold. I dangled the goggles from my finger, edged them until the strap clung to the last inch of my tip, and then I tilted down and let the goggles sink into the darkness. 1, 2, 3, I counted, and ducked my head under the water. My eyes stung as they adjusted to the grey-green world. The goggles sank in slow motion, red-rimmed lenses filled with water. It bore down past my knees, and I caught it with my foot. Success. Again, I dropped the goggles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I plugged my nose with my fingers and plunged down. The monochrome landscape reminded me of the barren moon, of empty, starless space. As I descended, the chill grew sharper. It climbed up my body and through my skin, delving deep into my bones and freezing my marrow. My reserve of oxygen had begun to run thin when I discerned the goggles from the encroaching shadow. I reached and hooked my fingers around the strap, gripping it tight as I turned up to the surface and rose towards the light. I repeated the ritual once more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The goggles grew smaller as the seconds ticked by. My stomach churned and my lungs filled with helium. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I took a deep, deep breath and dove head first, blowing out through my nose. I pushed with the downward current, which seemed to hold me in embrace. We fell together, gravity and I, our limbs entangled, skin against skin. My lungs began to squeeze tight, and the pressure crept into my ears. And still, I swam deeper, deeper, through the cold which sliced at me, which by all means should have been ice. And at the last edge of the light, I glimpsed a flash of bright red. I made my final push, the pressure all around me, all of my organs scrunching inwards, gliding down with my arms stretched out, to save the goggles before they became indistinguishable from the darkness. The goggles landed. On the lake floor, I presume. The lake floor shifted. Not sand, but skin. Pale and wrinkly and sloughing off the boy's bloated body. His bulging stomach. His inflated hands and peeling fingers. His fat, hot dog lips, purple and red and glued together. He hung in the water, half submerged in the darkness. Black infection ran through his veins. The last kiss of starlight made him glow like a ghost, like an angel. I reached out for my goggles. I reached out for him. The drowned boy opened his waterlogged eyes. A warbled scream escaped from his fish lips. Cold! I gagged. Water thrusted in through my mouth into my lungs. The boy writhed and spasmed in slow motion, grasping out for me with his torn fingers. Cold! I choked on lake filth. I sank, closer to the boy in his wall of shadow. Cold, cold! I felt his sagging skin brush against mine, and his blubbery fingers work their way around my ankle. I felt his heaviness, dragging me down. I kicked and thrashed, and he wouldn't let me go. Cold, he pleaded. He begged. I dug my fingers under his and kicked into his ballooning gut. The boy fell away, swallowed whole by the abyss. I watched as the darkness crept up his outstretched hand, reaching for the warmth of my skin. I swam up and up and up, towards the distant glimmer of the sun, up and up and up, through the dead frozen water, up and up and up, against the pull of the darkness, until finally I burst into the open air, hacking the poison out of my lungs. Gasping, retching, I paddled furiously to stay afloat. Mom! Mom! She didn't stir, slumped forward at the bench in the grass, a miniature, powerless from this distance. All around, the water trembled and whirled about me. My unheard screams skipped across the surface and echoed, echoed, echoed. I lay atop the white comforter of my hotel bed. A man groan, my arms and legs dangle over the edge of the mattress. TV chatter blurs into the background, and my eyes grow numb from the screen's artificial glow. I turn to my side and watch the city through the doubly thick window. A flight of dark clouds rolls in from the coast. The storm sheds its weight in heavy downpour, battering the window with rain, thud, 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 the droplets smearing themselves across the glass. The empty streets and dark storefront signs and skyscrapers are reduced to streaky blur. I can still hear his voice calling to me, rising from the deep, drifting into my ears. I roll off the bed and yank the cord, shuttering out the evening grey. As I circle the bed and click on the overhead light, my phone starts to rumble on the dresser. I reach for it, flip it up. Mom. Cole? Her voice is muffled by the storm. Hey, Mom, is everything okay? Yes, everything's... Hey! Dog yips in the background. My fingers curl up and squeeze the softness out of my pillow. I think Tucker misses you, she says. Make sure to give him a hug for me. Will do. So, how's Boston? How's work? Wet. The last conference was today, and I'll be heading back home on Monday. I still have the weekend to muck about, I guess. I lay the pillow at the head of the bed. Why did you call? You remember Candle Lake, right? We went all the time when you were younger. Cold air creeps in through the window and pulls about my ankles. Mom, tell me. The town just called. They're dozing down the forest and filling in the lake. That's... I trail off. Let the sound of the downpour trickle into the empty air. Why? Advancements of public works and community safety, she says, in a mechanical tone. I don't know. I'm sorry, Cole. This must be hard. I still remember when they shut down my favourite bar. No, Mom, that's wonderful. I imagine the trucks backing across the stone parking lot, up the grassy hill and down to the shore, pouring dirt and rubble into the water, suffocating all of the bad memories beneath 1,000 tons of waste. Wonderful. Thanks. I'll talk to you soon. What? Cole? I hang up the phone and throw it down onto the mattress. It bounces and skips across the room, cracking against the plaster wall. I run to the window and undo the shutters, pressing my palms against the chilled glass. I think of all the beach days and the pool parties I've had to skip. There were times where I couldn't even shower, haunted by that boy and his peeling green skin, as if his hand never let go, as if I've been chained to Candle Lake all these years. Relief washes over as the rain clears out Boston's streets. It's over. His body will turn to sediment under the weight of the next generation, all of its love and ambition. Mom's right. I used to swim all the time. I loved it. I slip into my shoes and race down the carpeted hotel hallway. Darkness peers in through the tall windows of the hotel lobby. A scrawny man sits under the front door awning, taking shelter from the rain. Inside, the room is crowded with white couches and reclining chairs, which sit empty under the wall-mounted television sets, running cartoons, filling the lobby with exaggerated voices in bright colours. Hello? A broad-shouldered woman sits behind a computer at the front desk. A mop of dark hair hides her face like a veil. Excuse me. She's surrounded by shelves stocked with candy bars and chip bags. Assorted wrappers lay strewn about her desk in lieu of a bell. I knock at the wood. The woman looks up and unplugs one of her earbuds. Hi, she says. You want something? Can you tell me where the pool is? I check the name tag, pinned to her grey uniform. Aubrey? I think she's older than me, but it might just be the bags pressed under her eyes. She blinks. Ah, Aubrey points through the wall. Down this hallway, take the first left, through the gym, and you'll need your keycard to swipe in. Aubrey leans forward and looks at me over. You going to swim in jeans? I step back. Ah, no. Well, you can't swim in nothing. Aubrey rattles her crimson-painted nails against the desk. Adult swim or not, I'm not swimming. Not tonight. Aubrey stares at me, her lips cemented in a straight line. Just testing the waters. Right, Aubrey says, stifling a laugh. Let me know how it goes. She plugs her earbuds back in and clicks around on the computer. I shake my head and start down the hallway. My shoes squeak against the spotted rubber floor of the gymnasium. Past the empty treadmills and the floorboard weights stands a frosted glass door. Pool. Open 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. Adult swim, 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. No lifeguards, no diving. The handle beeps, flashing a green light as I swipe my card. A hand bubbles up from the depths of my brain, clawing its fingers through filmy grey matter. I tighten my grip on the handle and imagine myself sealing my mind's wrinkles with dirt and cement. A wall of sour-sweet chlorine shoves its way through the open door. I shoulder through the smell, so old, so heavy, thick enough to gag on. Misty green floor tiles lead past the rough-hewn towels and down, where the pool lies in wait. A camera cranes its neck down from the corner of the ceiling, watching with a glassy stare. Artificial breeze rumbles in the overhead tubing. Rain-splattered windows line the walls. Through a row of unkept bushes, I spot the back-end parking lot. Street lamps stand watch over the sleeping cars. The room is empty. The pool and I are alone. The milky water is dead still, forever untouched. Through the chemical glare, I see the pool's floor, swirling patterns of white and blue tiles which run lengthwise across the room. A silver ladder emerges from the bottom and clings to the edge of the deep end, with a staircase in the opposite corner that leads down into the shallow water. All is warped in the pool's reflection. The white bulb lights seem to sprout up from the tiles, glowing like alien planets. Midnight windows peer out into the darkness beneath the floor, an inverted world where the rain rushes up to the sky. I pull the back of my shoe's heel and unfill my socks. The pale sandy floor is rough beneath my feet. I walk in circles around the room, brushing my hands against the bristly wicker chairs, waiting for the windows to crack and the darkness to flood in. I graze the surface of the water with my foot. Cool, not cold. Circles grow out from the point of contact and spread to the far corners. When I pull back, hungry air clings to the wet skin. I lay on my chest, skin scraping against the grooves and edges of the floor. My fingers dance and swerve through the water, stirring up invisible chemical fumes that make my brain wobble. I hold my wrist under, quelling the flames and the smoke which fill the clustered veins. From there, calmness spreads throughout. As the water steadies itself, my reflection becomes coherent, becomes me. The next morning, I brave the damp Boston streets and purchase a pair of purple-pink swim trunks. They're too small, hiking up my legs whenever I walk, and the interior netting shakes painfully against my inner thighs. But I wear them all the same, sitting at the edge of my bed, listening to the intermittent dripping of the bathroom faucet. Come evening, I take the elevator down to the first floor and waddle through the lobby. Aubrey rests her elbows on the front desk, crunching into a bar of chocolate. Back for more? That's right. I pat down my legs, straightening out my bathing suit. I forgot to wear my name tag yesterday. I'm Cole. Hi, Cole. Aubrey rubs her knuckles under her baggy eyes. So, the water was up to your standards? It's a low bar. I haven't been swimming for years. Be careful then, Aubrey grins. My manager will make me clean up your body if you drown. I'll stick to the shadow end then. Start with some warm-up, Aubrey says, waggling me away with her painted fingers, and have fun. Down the hallway, through the gym. The pool room is silent but for the thrum of the air conditioner, the whir of the filter, like a diaphragm, pulling in, pushing out. I shove my shoes and socks under one of the chairs. The windows are smudged with drying tears. Though the rain has stopped, the empty clouds refuse to move on, leaving the sky a stark, starless desert. With my arms taut around the silver bars, I place my foot on the ladder's first step. There I stand, with my back to the water. The longer I wait, the warmer the water feels, like a hug around my ankles. I take another step, sinking down to my waist. Above, the air tussles and teases at my naked skin. But the pool is reinforced against the chill, is warm and is pulsing with summer heat. I take another step, reaching down with my foot, and then something frigid brushes against my ankle. I clamber up the staircase, gasping and spraying water across the scratchy floor. Warmth trickles down my chest and drips down around me. It's nothing. It's over. I press my hand to my thumping heart. But it's not over. Even if Candor Lake is hundreds of miles away, even if 10 years have passed, I'm still shivering, helpless 12-year-old. My fingernails dig into my chest. I lean over the edge of the pool. Beneath layers and layers of reflection lies a crumpled shadow. A slender, red-haired boy limp in the water. His hair hangs about his head like a cloud of fire. No older than I was that day, no less scared than I am now. No lifeguard, no diving, and I am no boy. My teeth lock against each other. I tilt my head up and the air seeps in through my nostrils. I shut my nose and through the tremors and the bubbling nausea, found the will to jump. The splash of my body hitting the water goes mute as I sink under. Quiet settles. My eyes inch open, braced against the sting of chlorine. As I glide towards the boy, his figure becomes more clear. His long eyelashes and his lips pursed in peaceful sleep. His skin is bone white and burns under the brilliant red of his hair. My feet land atop the glassy tiles. I squat down and shove my arms under the boy's back, with his fading warmth pressed close. I start for the ladder, hoisting the two of us up, rung by rung, against the drag of his dead weight. I take the boy's hand and squeeze it. Please be okay. We're going to be okay. He squeezes back with a wiry grip. Rays of light filter through the shifting surface of the water. At the final rung, I heave the two of us up, but my head cracks into something hard, and I nearly lose my grip on the ladder. The hell? Once I've steadied myself and feel secure against the wall, I reach up for the surface. I run my fingers along the cold ceiling, then press it with my palm. It shifts against my touch, ripples outwards, yet won't let me through. The pool is solid, like a curtain of glass, rolling and shifting. Fuck! I pound with my knuckle. The skin breaks, the water doesn't. The boy's fingers clamp around my wrist. Cole! I hear the warbled scream that has echoed in my nightmares for a decade. It rings clear in the water, and now I understand. Cole! The red-haired boy pulls with a strength beyond his slender arms. The tiled floor descends, giving way to a vast darkness. That abyss which has always called my name. Cole! A black vein shoots up and pierces the boy's back, and his limbs slowly inflate. His stomach bulges and dares to burst. His skin peels like chipping wallpaper and turns an asphyxiated purple. Cole! With his thick, wrinkled fingers, the infested corpse wrenches me from the ladder. My fingers edge slowly across the rung, closer, closer, until finally my grip is lost, and I'm careening down into the icy depths. Impossible. This space should be filled with dirt. This space cannot exist, and yet it swallows me all the same. I do as I did before, kick and thrash, but the darkness has learned how to keep hold of its prey. This, truly, is the greatest, most penetrating of thrills. The final pumping of your heart. The explosions in your ears which resonate through your skull. The abyss, which has lured you in, and now closes its crushing weight around you. A pair of faded red goggles drifts down from above, filtering in with the cracked glasses, broken toys, and rusted jewellery which hang in the water. All of the treasures which slip from our fingers, which tempt us to swim downwards. Beneath them, from the bottom of this impossible space, rises a mountain of rot and decay. Young and old, man or woman, the water welcomes all. I wonder who this boy was before he drowned and became what I can only understand as bait. I know then that I'm just another body, another boy. No one has ever, can ever save me. I close my eyes. Claps of thunder sound from above. Clouds went empty after all. A shining sun burns through the reds of my eyelids. The boy's grip loosens. Splash. Fizzling bubbles. Something descending from above. A smooth hand with a strong grasp latches onto mine. Mom? I wrench my eyes open. Aubrey in a grey uniform. She swims up and I kick with her. We rise from the endless void toward the radiant glow of a white sun. One of the ceiling lights, half submerged. The boy's fleshy fingers squirm and try to wriggle free. I hold on. I will not let go. We'll dredge up the depths and finally face this monster. Aubrey lugs herself up the ladder, and then me, spluttering and gulping up the filtered air. I brace my feet against the base of the ladder and with the last of my strength, pull, fighting against the wriggling corpse as it races towards the darkness. Aubrey hooks her arms under my shoulders and we are one, wrenching the boy out of the water, the nightmare from my brain. His blubbery skin leaks out of viscous ink and tears across the jagged floor. The bloated corpse writhes about like a dying fish. With milky, waterlogged eyes, he watches Aubrey and I as we cough up our lungs and stand to our feet. It tries to copy us and collapses. Aubrey, I thought I was going to die. I look back to the light. The neck of the bulb dangles from a knotted cord of wire. How did you know? You thought I just listened to music and slept at my desk? Aubrey wipes her mouth, glances up to the camera. Thought I'd keep an eye on you. Not that I expected, well, whatever the hell that is. The rotting body spasms and rolls towards the water. I climb to my feet and kick into its swelling stomach, sending it sprawling against the wall. Cole, it murmurs through its puffy lips. On land, it isn't so much terrifying as pathetic. What's the takeaway here? Aubrey asks, waving away the putrid stench. Don't save drowning kids? I don't know, but it knows my name. And it's not just this boy, it's all of that darkness waiting down there. Well, Aubrey claps her hands together, this is evidently beyond our understanding, so let's beat this thing to a pulp and call it a day. That instant, the wire gives. Sparks shower from the thread as the light crashes down into the water. I jump back, pulling Aubrey to the far wall. The pool sizzles and snaps, and to our left, the boy's stomach bursts. Inky blackness sprays out and splatters the wall. His skin sizzles into the empty air, leaving only a wretched stain. They don't pay me enough to clean this shit. Aubrey flicks the lights off and shines her phone in the dark room. We walk to the pool's edge and stare down at the blue-white tiles and the dead, sunken bulb. The abyss has receded. Aubrey shoves me into the water. Hey! And then she jumps in after me, splashing me in the face. I splash back. She hoists me up in her arms and we spin around the pool, tracing the edge until the current moves with us. What if it comes back? We'll just drag it out again. We swim together in the darkness. For the first time in 10 years, I feel truly, wholeheartedly safe. My chickens huddle around the coop door, crying to be let free. I undo the lock, twist the bar upright, and swing the door open. They squawk as they shove their way through, racing off to hunt for worms and bathe in the dirt. Except for Rosanna, who lays nestled against the corner. I step inside and reach down, running my hand along her smooth, golden bronze feathers. She's a Rhode Island red and sits here every morning, waiting for the sun to escape from the swamp's dense canopy. Through the prickly bush which rustles at the yard's edge and down a steep decline lays the swamp. A vast expanse of pitch-black mud. Tall, spindly trees emerge from the bog and blot out the light with their swaying leaves. I watch with her as the first sliver of sun breaches the tree line. Warmth washes through the yard, reaching Rosanna's corner first, as always. Later, the chickens bustle about, foraging in the grass. I lean back in my lawn chair, skimming through a crappy horror book, trying to ignore the hunger as it wells up in my chest, weaving dirty fingers between my own. Damn it. I fumble in my pocket for the pack of cigs and my mom's lighter. Its surface is scratchy and the silver has worn from use. I stole it from her when she wouldn't stop smoking around my younger sisters. They're my children, Hannah, she said. You'll be having yours soon enough. I don't. Have never wanted kids. And I certainly wouldn't have more if I couldn't be bothered to love the first. As the cigarette fills my lungs with a crude warmth, Rosanna pecks at the dirt. Score! A fat worm wriggles in her beak. But before she can scarf it down, two of the others scope out a catch. Rosanna dashes away with her prey, her sisters hot on her tail. They disappear around the back of the house, cuckling. It's not what you wanted from me, Mom. I know. On the day I left, she blocked the front door. Pressing her back against it, slender arms braced against the frame as if to keep the outside out. I understand. You need space. You want to explore. But don't waste time. Don't wait to find a man. Raise a family. And when you do, you'll come back to us, she said in that harsh, demanding voice. You have to. I'd like to say that I bit back with all of the scathing words I'd rehearsed in my head, but my tongue caught in my mouth. I turned around and took the back door, tracking my shoes on the carpet. A harsh cough scrapes up and out of my throat. I lay my paperback on the grass, walk to the curb, and spit. Crushing the cigarette against the street with my heel. Pocket the stub, then back up the grass and down into my chair. I hate cigarettes. Hate my mom for infecting me with this yearning. Sadly, a barred Plymouth Rock twists her head and starts to peck at the cover of my paperback. Not nice, I say, scooping her up in my arms. She clucks as I smooth down her black white feathers. Soon, she nestles up against my stomach and closes her eyes. We sat together for a long while, holding each other until the blurb on the novel's cover becomes indiscernible by the light of the sinking sun. Like the dreadful blare of an alarm, a chicken's cry is picked up by the wind, incinerating the evening calm. Sally jumps awake, clawing through the fabrics of my shirt as more voices join together in the shrieking. I wince and shove to my feet, clutching it tight against my chest. No time to get the gun. We sprint towards the backyard as bubbles of dread expand in my chest. But the backyard is free of blood and strewn feathers. The chickens flail about, running in circles around the dark oak coop. Except for Raven, a black bantam. She stands guard, watching the swamp and its trees with endlessly knock-knock against each other. Who's there? Raven's black coat glistens like obsidian in the dusk. With Sally in one arm, I undo the lock and swing open the coop door. She drops from my grip and flaps her wing, landing inside. The others rush in after her. I count them as they file in. One by one, they silence their cries and fill their gullets with feed. My heart slows as the pressure in my chest deflates. Raven, though, she won't budge from a watch, won't stop calling out to the swamp. Did you scare the others? I kneel down next to her, scratching her head with my finger. Prickly bushes creep out from the swamp, reaching their thorny branches across the no-build line. A few feet away stands the coop, which hides in the shadow of my house. Its wooden frame is encased with wire and roofed with blue sheet metal. A slanted staircase leads up from the dirt floor to a wooden nest. Raven wrestles against me as I pick her up and drop her inside with the others. I make a final count for the night. Tilly and Tori, Daisy and Sally, Raven and Gracie and Goldie, and Roxanne. Again, the numbers tick up in my head. Someone's missing. Rosanna. But not soon after that thought does Gracie's crying stop. She watches through the wire as with a slow, self-assured trot comes Rosanna, picking her way through the thorns, her talons black, mud leaking from her beak. I stare down at Rosanna as she slides past my legs and into the coop. Until now, the girls have steered clear of the swamp. And always I sit with them in the yard, ready to throw myself at any fox who dares step foot past the brush. But I can't protect Rosanna, any of them if they disappear under the thorns and out of sight. Rosanna ignores the feeder and climbs up the runway. Not hungry today? She disappears through the small square door. Apparently not. Rosanna leaps up to her perch with a thud. I hear her rustling feathers as she settles for the night. I grimace as I remember stomping up the stairs to my room and locking myself away. I tuck my paperback under my arm, pack away my chair in the shed, and make a final pass by the coop for the night. My heel sinks into something soft. A chicken mess. Down at my feet is a pile of dirt and the hole from which it was dug, pressed against the wall of the coop. Someone's been busy. Trying to burrow in. My throat squeezes tight. I kick the dirt back into the place and stomp the earth. The swamp shuffles and creaks and rustles. Fat flies buzz around my ears and tease at my nape, daring to land. I think it's time to build a fence. Later, I lay secure beneath the weight of my thick blankets, legs curled in and arms wrapped around my knees. I let my eyes flutter shut. Darkness takes shape. Something emerges from the swamp. A woman, veiled with syrupy dripping mud, clawing her way through the thorns. She skulks up against the coop, reaching long, dirty fingernails through the wire. I shrug the covers free and rush to the window, shoving it open. Warm air leaks out into the silent night. Silent, but for the whistle of the swamp, which waggles its bony fingers. All is black and convulsing in the shadows. I retrieve the shotgun and a box of extra shells from under the bed, laying the barrel against the wall and the ammo beside it. I don't sleep. I listen. Morning comes, eventually. Sunlight is shuttered by the overlapping tree line. My head is thrumming and my stomach gurgles. Time for breakfast. Freshly laid eggs if I'm lucky. I slip on my boots and slide out the front door. The chickens are already up and pecking at the feeder, except for Rosanna. But she's always first, much to the chagrin of the smaller sisters. Today, the bantams need not struggle against the others for a place at the table. I prop open the side flap to the nesting box. Rosanna is crushed against the corner of a stall, head tucked under her wing. I reach my hand in, smoothing out her ruffled feathers, then nudging her out of the way. She whines and snaps her beak into the flesh of my fingers as I push her away from the egg. An egg which should be caramel brown and not a dark crimson. It's soft. The eggshell gives in under the pressure of my fingers. It's sticky, and it pulses with heat. I wipe the shell out with my sleeve, but the colour sticks. Rosanna shrieks and stabs her talons into my fingers, drawing pinpricks of blood. This is a sparse town, and the nearest veterinarian lives more than 2 hours away. I pace in the yard as I make an appointment for tomorrow. But why? Rosanna's young and strong. My watery eyes are drawn to the burning morning light which bleeds through the canopy. Worry sizzles and snaps in my brain as I turn the stove up. With 2 quick creaks, I empty fresh eggs against the pan. Yellow goodness drips down the curve and starts to simmer on the steel. My eyes are drawn to the brilliant shimmer of the crimson egg. I don't own a rooster, so the egg can't be, occupied. But it hums with life. Something about its bloody colour and the way its surface moulds to your touch. I take its softness and whack it against the pan's edge. Nothing. I dig my fingers into its membrane-like shell and tear it apart. Curiosity turns sour as a dirty brown gunk leaks from the egg and splats into the pan. Its putrid stink forces its way up my nose and down my throat. My hand seals my mouth in an attempt to keep down last night's dinner. The yellow eggs lose their colour as they melt together with the brown into a thick, muddy mass. As the black pan gains heat, bubbles pop up from the amalgamated goo. It warbles and shrinks, creeping inwards until it's nothing but steam and a lingering sense of nausea. The pan is empty. It cooks nothing. I stood there for a long time. And then I get my chair. I sit against the coop, calling out to Rosanna. She refuses to leave her nesting box and responds to me with a high-pitched chicken cry, laying egg after egg. By evening, she rests atop a pile of 4 crimson eggs. She won't even jump and perch with the others. It's going to be okay, I say, scratching her head. We'll get you checked up tomorrow. I leave her with a kiss and lock up the coop. wiping my eyes with my sleeve. Darkness sets in, rolling up from the swamp. I take a cigarette from my pocket and set it alive with Mom's lighter. Something's hurting Rosanna on the inside, and it isn't something she can understand. That's the worst of it. An animal can't make sense of their suffering, can only cower and cry. The smoke rises and joins with the clouds overhead, blotting out the sky. I lay in bed, sweating profusely, still wearing my jeans. Though the window is open, my blankets still cling to my damp skin. I listen for so long that I start to hear murmured words in the trees, in the frigid gusts of wind that blow in through the curtains. Consciousness wavers in and out. Then, something shifts, from one bed to another. I find myself in the dreamy etching of my old room, posters tearing along the edges, desks strewn with books and pencils. She raps at the door with those long, unkept fingers. "Hannah!" she screams, and suddenly she's inside at the edge of my bed. Mom, stinking of alcohol and vomit and sweat and sex. And she leans over, smothering me with an embrace. "You need to make more, Hannah." Her words slur in a balanced phrase. Make more." I try to wriggle free, but she pins me to the mattress with her long arms, poisons me with the putrid odour. "Little grandbabies for me. Won't you make more?" At first, I couldn't tell if it's real or not. But the raucous cries of the chicken burn through the dream all the same, setting my mind ablaze. I throw myself out of bed and grab the shotgun. Cursing every wasted second, I stuff the ammo and my phone into my pocket. The shotgun weighs heavy in my half-asleep arm as I race through the house and burst out the front door. Pressing forward through the frozen air, all the while my girls scream and beat their feathers. I round the back corner and ready the shotgun, shouting over the cacophony, "Who's there?" Pouncing my foot against the earth, kicking dust into the air. At the far edge of the coop sits a pile of dirt, a hole burrowed under the wooden frame, and cowering in the corner of the first floor, a fat raccoon with grubby fingers. Bastard! The fat raccoon trembles as I kick the wired lining of the coop. The chickens are safe in their nest, clucking up a storm. Thank God. But why hadn't the raccoon climbed up the runway? I hit the coop with the barrel of my shotgun, rattling the wire, but he doesn't budge. He hugs the wall, scrunching his quivering body into a tightly packed ball. Come on, little guy. What are you so afraid of? It's then that I realise what I hadn't before. What I hadn't heard over the echoing cries of the chickens and the thumping of my own skull. The night is alive, with a ferocious stringing wind. But the trees are still dead. The swamp is silent. I turn and see it, swallowing up the prickly brush as it trudges closer. A heaving darkness, more pure than the night, understood only as absence by the outline of shadow that hangs around it. From its side extends a long, sludgy limb, which it winds back and smashes through the wall of the coop. I'm struck in the chest by thick debris and thrown back, crashing against the ground. My head knocks against its wall, and the crack squeezes the sense out of my brain. The chicken's shrieking rings out and echoes into the far reaches of the swamp. Through my bleary eyes, I watch the slimy darkness sink low, beneath the coop, and stretches out its dripping limb towards the raccoon. From the stump grows 4 spindly fingers, which hook around the neck of the raccoon. It snarls and shrieks, but cannot escape from the wet grip of the gasping, bubbling mound. And soon, its cries are cut, as a black tentacle flows out from the palm of the muddy limb and into the raccoon's mouth. First, its lips, and then its cheeks, splitting open as the mud descends further into its bowels. It peels the raccoon in half, like an egg split against the edge of a pan. And from the depths of the broken corpse emerge 3 wriggling creatures. Unborn raccoons, glowing the same crimson as Rosanna's eggs. So carefully the creature picks up the fleshy children, and then crushes them in its fingers. Black mud seeps out from their ears and their mouths and gushes out through the white of their unseeing eyes. The mud melts into the mass of the creature and it grows, swallowing up more of the light. This thing, the gunk from the eggs, is the abyssal bog itself. And now it's creeping its arms through the door to the nest. The ground spins wildly underfoot as I try to stand. I move to step towards the shattered coop, but my foot falters and I'm sent down to my knees. Helpless, as the mass retrieves the 4 crimson eggs and then Rosanna. Not Rosanna. Stolen away from her sisters, drowning in the mud as the creature squeezes her against its torso. She flails her feet and cries, head jerking left and right. It's shocking. Wet fingers trace down her back, again and again, as if to soothe her. The shotgun wavers, try as I may to steady my aim. I can't shoot like this. I'll kill Rosanna. The monster trudges back down to the path, disappearing into shifting depths of shadow. A burning wetness leaks down the gaping hole on my head. I reach for it, stain my hand with the blood of my melting brain. It hurts, more than anything ever has before. But still, I can move. I have to, because Rosanna can't, because she's family. I let the blood seal my fingers to the lacquered wood of the shotgun's barrel. With wobbling legs, I push up from the dirt and stagger down the winding trail, plunging into the depths of the swamp. The sky is swallowed up by the canopy, and the trees look down upon me dreadfully still. A snaking vine of thorns catches on my bare ankle, dragging through the skin as I race by. My socks sink into the frozen wet earth, sink deeper and deeper, until the mud rises halfway up my legs. And still, I press forward. Through the hornets which swarm and sting at my arms, past the bramble which snags me as I hobble by, pricked with blood. I run and run, until the mud is up to my knees and a low crimson glow awakens in the night. All around stretches an ocean of hungry, pulsing mud, suckling the life from my skin like a newborn. Red animal corpses lay half submerged in the bog. Baby rabbits and foxes and birds crushed and mangled like the baby raccoons, still dripping with the last remnants of the tar. Rosanna's cries shoot up along the trees and resound painfully in the night. I plunge further still, until I find that towering mound which slopes up out of the bog and hunches over Rosanna, squeezing the life out of her in its sloppy, misshapen fingers. From a bent black limb emerges the same black tentacle, which writhes and reaches out towards Rosanna's beak. No! I force my legs forward through the heavy mud. The mound shifts, turning towards me. Somewhere from the hollows of its dripping body emerges a warbling scream. I aim the shotgun at the base of the creature, push the safety, pull the trigger. The shell explodes outwards, splitting into shrapnel that shreds through the walking abyss. But as the ringing of the shot fades, the holes in the creature's flesh are filled in. Rosanna shrieks and rapid-fire flaps her wings as the muddy tentacle slides in through her beak. I make it fire once more, trailing the end of the barrel at the creature. Push the safety in, pull in an instant. A mound of wet flesh shoots out the creature's side, ramming with the speed of a bullet into my arm. Bone snaps with a deafening crack. Ah, fuck! I'm sent back, clutching at my bent arm. The shotgun drops to the mud. With a wet, slurping noise, it is sucked into the depths of the bog. I drop down to my knees, grasping in the darkness with my good hand. The mud grows tight around my wrist and my feet, chaining me in place. All I can do is watch as poor Rosanna is torn apart from the inside. Rosanna! Rosanna! I sob. I hope that she hears me, that she feels my love, that somehow it's easier now that I'm here, as the creature reaches down her throat, ripping her in half. It claims a final crimson egg, which shines like a blazing sun in the darkness. And then it discards Rosanna and her beautiful fiery feathers, tossing her into the mud like a peeled banana, used up for all of her worth. As if she wasn't warm and smart, as if she didn't rest her eyes when I held her, as if she wasn't family. It cups the 5 eggs, crushes them into that dark paste which feeds into the collective. I writhe and struggle, but cannot budge. The creature turns to me, watches the tears stream down my face, and then it starts to glide across the surface of the mud, towards me. My scream is swallowed up by the warm, wet mud wriggling around me. Soon, the whole of my body is dragged deep into the heart of the creature. All is overtaken by the suffocating darkness. An army of fish sucking away with their toothless lips, a massive fleshy tongue, rolls of fat and sweat folding endlessly. Fingers take shape in the heavy mass. They trace the length of my lips and then pry them apart. I writhe and try to bite down to fortify my insides from the mud, but it squeezes through and props open my jaw with a heavy arm and rushes in. I feel a great scratching in the skin of my throat as the mud travels deeper, entangling its tendrils through the branches of my lungs and sinking further still. Can't breathe. Can only taste the infected waste as it slides in and crashes down like a waterfall. My own cells turn against me as the mud takes control. Black droplets cling to the walls of my stomach, feeding on my fleshy insides. I don't want to die. Don't want to bring more of this twisted filth into the world. Scream, but I can't. Voice drowned out. Try to move, but the abyss is so heavy, only managing to wiggle my fingers. The ends of my lips start to peel as the flow grows faster. I think of Rosanna. Rosanna with her soft feathers and her reptilian claws, screaming as she was torn to pieces. My broken arm swells with blood and fire. The gash on the back of my head burns. My heart races against the current of the darkness, and then I remember Mom. Remember all the things I'd never had the strength to say. I focus all of my dwindling energy onto my fingers as they reach for my pocket. Somehow, they force their way through the mud and grasp the lighter and hold it tight. Click, click. A light blazes in the darkness. The creature warbles as its flesh bubbles and boils. It pulls back, rushing out of my insides and shrinking away. Soon, the mass melts into the black expanse beneath. I cough a tremendous splitting cough, hacking out wet spurts of mud. Sweet midnight air rushes in to take its place. After a moment of silence, the trees start to shake once more, drowning out my screams as I stomp and kick at the mud. The light is flame flickering against the wind. I take Rosanna's corpse in my good arm. Her body is split, stomach spilling out from the side, and yet she's still beautiful. Her cold feathers, slick with blood and dirt, glow like dying embers in the fresh, frozen dark. I'm sorry, I sob, with Rosanna's dirty, leaking corpse held tight. I stumble down the path alone. At the coop, I lay her body in a favourite corner, where the morning sun will reach first. My chickens start to wake, dropping down from the perch to the sound of my sniffling. I walk to the side door and reach inside, hugging them one by one. They lean their weight against me as I take them each to the car. When everyone's inside, I drive a distance down the road. My body aches as I trudge back up to my house, to the swamp. Something's growing inside of me. I feel it now, heavy and dark in my gut. But gods be damned if I don't try to burn it out of me. With a shaking hand, I drench the thorny brush and the bushes and the trunks of the trees with gasoline. Screw the wetlands, Mom. This is my life, my family, and I won't live by anyone's terms but my own. I click the old lighter on and fling it into the darkness. A great blaze bursts to life. The flames shoot up the trees and spread across the canopy. A trail of fire jumps between the brush, crawling up to me, lapping at the lawn and the coop and in the house with its scalding tongue. Night air boils in the face of the great bonfire. First, a deep breath. Then, I start down the path into the swamp. It burns a fiery red, as brilliant and proud as Rosanna. It's my last week of high school, and I've started playing a game. Whenever I do something for the last time, I make a note of it in my head. I performed my last concert in the stuffy auditorium. I took my last bite of the cafeteria's dry chicken patties. And I pissed one final time in one of the too low, too round urinals that always spray back. The final bell rings its shrill tune. I won't ever hear it again. I watch through the bus window as the school disappears from sight. The bus screeches to a halt. I stand and shove my way through the underclassmen who dangle their legs across the aisle. At the front, I thanked the kindly bus driver and bid him farewell. Then, down the final few steps and out to the street. The bus continues on. It passes by a slim white car before turning the corner and it's gone. I check the boxes in my head. Last. I turn and start to plug my earbuds in, but pause. A thunderous revving rolls through the neighbourhood. I see a blur of white cut straight through my periphery, and I don't have time to run. The white car clips up the curb and barrels through me. I'm sent sprawling across the cement, my flesh torn and leaking red-hot blood. It feels like lava against my skin, tastes like the bite of steel. I take a deep breath, convinced it will be my last. The world is drowned in black. I spend an eternity submerged in the darkness, my eyes shut tight. The world in its sweat and its pain are knocking, slamming the front door with their fists. But I won't answer. I won't. And then I feel the kiss of a damp towel. A gentle hand guides its smoothness across my face and down my neck. So cold, so soft. Mr. Irving? Her voice is soothing, and like the towel, it summons me from my dreamless sleep. I open my eyes to a room I have never seen, and a woman I've never met. She gasps, "You're awake!" Where am I? My throat stretches and burns as I speak, and the words come out hoarse. I'm Miss Judith, your caretaker, and this is nothing less than a miracle. She holds her hands to her chest. Her arms and legs are skinny and long. Caretaker? I hold one hand to my throat, to secure the other against the mattress beneath me. As I slowly lift myself to a sitting position, my body resists. My chest and my arms and my legs flash white-hot pain. Everything aches. What the hell is going on? I croak out. Your muscles have atrophied, Mr. Irving, Miss Judith says, and lays a delicate hand on top my pale blue sheets and eases me back down. I'm too weak to resist. You'll hurt yourself if you exert yourself. Lay here and rest. The room is lit with a warm yellow glow. I listen to the whirring of the overhead fan, watch as it tussles the partition beneath it. The smell of bleach wafts up from the white-tiled floors and the shiny walls. A dusty pipe runs along the ceiling. Sunspots of dark green mildew stare back from the corner. To my right is a window, its royal blue curtains closed. I remember. I was hit by a car, I say. It was your last day of school, Miss Judith says. They printed your name in the old newspaper. How long has it been? You must be hungry, Mr. Irving. Stop calling me that, I say. I'd like to see my parents. They visited every day, she says, her voice quiet now. They knew you would come back to us. Where are they? I move my hand as if to run my fingers through my hair. I find nothing, and am left to wander the dry desert of my scalp. They passed away. Years ago. But that is impossible. Mum and Dad are still young, and the three of us are driving up to New York in August. They wanted to see the city with me before sending me off to college in the fall. How can they be dead? Miss Judith leans over my bed and rubs her towel against my eyes, drying up the tears before they can drip down my cheeks. I'm so sorry, but you mustn't worry about them now. You're starving, aren't you? Just a minute and I'll fill you up. Miss Judith swoops in and plants a kiss on my forehead. So cold, so soft. I look into her beautiful blue eyes and find them trembling with warmth and love and pity. She slips away, then pauses just before clicking the door shut. Welcome to Van Winkle's nursing home, Mr. Irving. Mr. Irving is my father. I'm Will. Just Will. I run my thick, wrinkled fingers down my chest. My skin is too long for my body, and even though I feel so sweaty, it's bone dry to touch. I need a mirror. I groan as I roll onto my side. I wince. A dozen sharp cracks ring out from my spine. The royal blue window shades are shuttered tight. An IV stand towers over me, its bag filled with a viscous white syrup. I trace it as it flows down through the tube and beneath my sheets. I lift my heavy, heavy arm. The needle is plugged in, but I can hardly feel it. I leave it there. A small white table stands by my bed. On its surface is a glass vase and a single fake flower. I shift towards the edge of the mattress. In the rounded face of the glass, I see myself, distorted. My bald skull, my sparse grey brow, my drooping cheeks, all stretched like putty in my reflection. Oh my God. I remember what it felt like to be young. Somewhere inside of my new body is trapped the phantom of the past. My old body, my young limber body, tries to wriggle free. But this is me. I'm a withered old man. Wasn't I supposed to travel the world? To study film and make a name for myself? To meet new friends? To fall in love? I'll never eat Mum's cooking again. I'll never catch a movie with Dad again. I won't see either of them. Never, never, never. My entire life is behind me, and this little room is where I will spend the rest of my time, and where I will die. Don't cry. An old man's voice calls out from the other side of the partition. You heard her, didn't you? It's a miracle, he croaks. Yes, a miracle. He starts to laugh. The sound like the back and forth creaking of an old rocking chair. I wipe the soft skin under my eyes. What year is it, I ask. But the man keeps on laughing. What's happened out there, in the world? It's gone to hell, he says. Presumably. Suddenly, a hand thrusts around the near side of the curtain. The man hooks his long, dirty fingers around my shoulder and squeezes tight. But how would I know? I only woke up yesterday. You mean, you were in a coma too? I ask. I know as much as you two. He gives my shoulder one final squeeze and then pulls his arm back behind the curtain. Your body feels wrong, he whispers. Mine too. That instant, Miss Judith swings the door open, a wide grin on her face. She's holding 2 trays of food. Mr. Irving, she says, laying the tray in my lap. Mr. May, she says, as she disappears around the partition. I pick up the wet mass on my tray. It's shaped like a waffle, but it's mushy, like someone chewed it into a paste and then moulded it back into a waffle. Compared to this, the school cafeteria seems like a 5-star restaurant. Miss Judith peeks around the curtain. Her soft cheeks stretch out as she smiles. You'll eat for me, won't you? Do you have any syrup? Oh, Mr. Irving, she laughs, waving the thought away with her hand. Eat. I'm not hungry. Oh, but you are. You need to stay strong for me. Will you eat, or shall I feed you myself? I scoop out a sporkful of the wet mass and crush it with my teeth. Not that I need to. It's pre-chewed. Miss Judith watches. She smiles. Good boy. My heart flutters in place like a butterfly caught in a spider's web. Before she leaves, Miss Judith gives us each a kiss, then clicks off the lights. Blue shadow floods the room. The overhead fan whirs and whirs. I close my eyes, but sleep will not come. I've spent years in that darkness, wasting away. I've lost everything, and soon I will lose myself. I cannot rest without the anxiety bubbling up in my stomach, urging me to open my eyes and confirm that I'm still alive. I open my eyes. It's then that I see him, the old man, staggering around the bend of the curtain. His head hangs low. Each of his steps is heavy and uncertain. The ivy stand rolls slowly behind him. Mr. May? His silhouette freezes. Brian! He hunches over my bedside, breathing heavily. The silver thread of saliva leaks down from his lips. Why are you out of bed? I brace myself against the pain and brush myself up. Mr. May's face is obscured by the darkness, but I can tell that his brow is clenched in concentration. I want to test something, he says. Mr. May takes the vase from my bedside table and lifts it in the air. It drops and shatters with an icy crack. Stay still. He bends down and lifts one of the shards, clasping it tight between his thumb and forefinger. Wait, stop it, stop, I scream. Mr. May places a heavy hand over my mouth, muffling my scream. I kick and wriggle and bite, sinking my teeth into his soft, too soft flesh. It tastes sour. The old man doesn't bleed. Mr. May traces the line of my jugular with the shard, trailing down my neck, my shoulders, to my chest. And then, with a shaky hand, he digs in. I watch helplessly as the sharp edge pierces my skin and scream. Yet I feel nothing. My sobbing slows as Mr. May runs the glass down my chest, peeling back a layer of fake skin. Beneath that thick rubber is my own chest, running with sweat, pulsing with my young heart. The door creaks open and I curl my body inwards, concealing the shard beneath the fake flesh. Mr. May. Miss Judith sings his name like a lullaby. Mr. May, why are you out of bed? Brian stumbles away from me, holding his hands in the air. You knocked over his vase, Miss Judith. I was helping him pick up the pieces. Miss Judith marches towards Brian. You mustn't disturb your roommate, Miss Judith says. I watch as she places a hand against Brian's stomach and with a gentle shove sends him toppling over. Brian crashes against the wall and clatters to the floor, groaning. Miss Judith wipes her hand against her pants. She kneeled down next to Brian. Oh, Mr. May, you must be careful. One bad fall is all it takes. She takes Brian's moaning body up in her arms, showering him in kisses. You poor thing. The next morning after breakfast, Miss Judith sweeps up the shattered vase. She doesn't replace it. She whistles a pleasant tune as she binds Brian's ankles to the foot of his bed with rope. And then we're alone. Are you okay? I whisper towards the partition. Swell, Brian says, croaking. What's your name? I'm Will. Well, Will, I for one would like to get the fuck out of this place. I'm supposed to be home from college for the summer. You know, spending time with family, seeing some old friends, and then I get pulverized by a goddamn car. And then I wake up here, trapped in an old man costume. Feels like I'm being swallowed alive. I think Miss Judith hit us with a car and then kidnapped us. She must get off on this, how powerless we are. She's a psychopath, Brian says. I'd beat the shit out of her if I wasn't such a frail old bastard. It's the drugs, I bet. I take the cord of the IV and unstick its needle. Then I reinsert it at a shallow angle, piercing only the rubber skin. Take out your IV and plug it into the bodysuit. I can't live like this any longer, Will. I need to get out of this body. I need to get out of this room. I know, but we have to wait and regain our strength. And so we lay in our beds, trapped in cocoons of sweat and rubber. Miss Judith sings to us and kisses us. She bathes us, touching us however she pleases. We have no choice but to lay there as she plugs her catheter in and drains the piss out. We eat her paste and then shit into her hands. Totally powerless. But I feel the cold glass against my true skin and remember that my parents are alive and the world is waiting. During the day, I flex my arms and my legs in bed. At night, I slip out of my sheets and untie Brian's rope. We practice walking in the dark. At first we cling to the wall and then to each other. Gradually, we regain our strength and grow more confident in our legs. We practice bending, then ducking, then dodging out of the way. Always listening for the creak of the door, dreading her soothing voice, the softness of her fingers. Miss Judith looms over us in the shadows. After 3 weeks, we're ready. I take the flap of loose rubber on my chest like a zipper and peel down, slice the bodysuit open like wrapping paper. I emerge from the chrysalis, naked, 18, dripping with sweat and smelling of mildew. My arms and stomach are covered in red gashes from the crash. Someone's done a rough job of stitching up the wounds. I look once more at the bodysuit, now a mess of rolls of rubber on the floor. Never again. I unwrap its gown and slip my arms through. I walk to the window and pull away the blue curtains. The gas is sealed with concrete. I pass around the partition and untie the rope from around Brian's ankles. The window's blocked, I say. We might be underground. Brian stretches out his legs, sighing. I hand him the glass shard and he peels open his bodysuit. He climbs out of the fat, drooping skin. Brian emerges, young and strong and covered in wounds. You smell disgusting, he says, squeezing his nose. As you do. Are you ready? Brian grins, tying his gown around his waist. Of course. Here, he says, handing me the shard of glass. He unhooks the IV bag from its stand and drops it to the floor, taking the metal rod in his hand. We line up by the door and 1, 2, 3, push the handle down and ease it open. Brian goes first. The room opens up into a long hallway, lit overhead by buzzing lights. The cement floor is cold beneath my bare feet. To our left and our right are a number of doors. I squint my eyes and glimpse through one of the door's windows and see 2 more beds, just like ours. Are these all other patients? Something squeaks in the distance. A little mouse, maybe, scurrying across the floor. We'll come back to free them after... And then the door to our left swings open, and Miss Judith walks through, whistling. She wheels a silver cart, across which is draped a bloodied, torn outfit, the clothing worn by the newest victim of Van Winkle's nursing home. And then Miss Judith sees it. She shrieks, spinning the cart towards Brian and I. I roll out of the way, but Brian isn't fast enough. The air is punched out of his gut as the metal crashes into him, rolls over him. Just as I regain my footing, Miss Judith, with all of her weight and her speed, sends me flying back against the wall. I feel a knot tangle around my heart and squeeze, pumping the juices out of my chest. I watch through blurry eyes as Brian tries to swing the IV stand at Miss Judith from the floor, but his angle isn't right and the attack is too slow. She grabs it, and after a short struggle, wrenches it free from his hands. I took care of you, Miss Judith screams. She raises the metal stand above her head and swings it down. It connects with Brian's skull with a resonant crack. He screams. When the world was rushing at you, I made it all go away. She raises the stand once more, and I watch in horror as it happens again. The rod cleaves down through the chilly air and smashes into Brian's face. His nose splits, spurts out blood. You can't leave me. You need me. Miss Judith pants and readies the rod once more. Brian curls up around his knees. I brace my arms against the wall and stagger to my feet, the shard of glass digging into my fingers. I stagger forward. Miss Judith swings around, cracking me in the neck with the rod. I'm sent careening down to the floor, head thumping hard against the stone. I feel my consciousness melting and leaking out through the gash. One bad fall. And so, I take my last breath. It all fades to black, and finally... No, I'm done with this stupid game. I'm done with last. I take my hands and brace them against the concrete and push through the blazing agony. I plant my feet firmly on the floor and rise. Miss Judith thrusts the metal rod into my gut. But I block the blow with my arms and hook my fingers around the end of the pole and yank backwards. Miss Judith loses her balance and stumbles towards me. I reach out for her, catching a ponytail and gripping it with my bloody fingers. She drops the IV stand and it clatters to the floor. Miss Judith claws and flails to her freer self. "You need me, don't you?" she shrieks. I imagine that her skin is rubber, that she's a costume worn by an old, wrinkled hag who feeds on the young. I take the glass shard to her neck and carve straight through. It leaves a trail of crimson, and soon Miss Judith goes limp. She collapses. Her nurse's uniform is stained an ugly, bruised red. I stare down at her, watching until the helpless twitching stops. I drop the glass shard and lean against the wall, waiting for the pain to subside just a little. Then I lean down and pick up the bloodied brain, resting him atop the metal cart. I limp as I push it down the hallway to our left, phasing in and out of consciousness. We come to a set of stairs, and I lug Brian off of the cart and drag him up, stopping to rest. I feel like such an old man. But eventually we climb to the top and enter into what appears to be a home. Golden sunlight flickers through the blinds of the front door. I drag Brian and myself across the kitchen and swing open the door. The sun blazes over the horizon. A warm breeze blows through the dancing streets of a suburban street. A dragonfly cuts through the air. "It's still summer, Brian," I say. "It's summer," I yell, laughing. "We still have all summer. It's amazing." Brian's leaking, mangled head lays limp against my shoulder. I wave my bloody hands in the air and start to scream for help.